UFC 318 is this week. I'm going to give you a full card prediction and breakdown of all 14 fights on this card. I did really ass last week. I think I had some fights that were solid, but I mean, the bigger fights I was made a fool of, especially in that main event. It only took 35 seconds to finish them. I don't know what I was thinking in that fight, but this card, we're going to go 14-0. As a card, as a whole, it is solid. Like, if you watch the UFC and you're a fan of UFC, you'll probably like it a little bit more. I don't know if it's $100 worth of a pay-per-view card, if I'm being honest. I don't think many people will pay that amount for this card, but if you're a UFC fan, there are some prospects coming up, especially on these prelims, that you're going to be wanting to look out for. So I think that's kind of why you would want to tune into this card, especially early on. But there aren't many big names on this card to really get too excited about, especially on the main card. So I am looking forward to this card just due to some of the prospects that are on this one. But starting off, we have Carli Judice versus Nicolle Caliari, I think is how you say that. I'm going to go Carli Judice. This is the only women's MMA fight on the card, I believe. It is the beginning of this card too. So I will say Carli Judice, her fights, she does look good in them. Caliari looks okay, I will say, but I always say, like, if you're able to get a finish in a women's MMA fight, I kind of value a little bit more than someone that can just get a decision. I know there are some females that will kind of just stall out against the fence, or will kind of use the wizards and kind of hold people down there, or maybe get in like a crucifix or whatever, and maybe finish the fight that way. There are some fighters that do kind of stall out a little bit in the women's divisions, I will say. But Carli Judice, she looks really good on the feet. She is hittable at times. I don't think Caliari is skilled enough to really touch her up too much. And I think the lady that she did fight in her last fight, Dubin, she was on the Contender Series. I think she fought like a mom, like 30 years old, had like a couple kids and a husband or something like that, and just put her completely out cold, brutally KO'd her on the Contender Series, had like a stuffed animal or whatever. So that lady had insane power. She wasn't like too technically skilled, I will say, but she fought her and then head kick KO'd her recently, about 3 months ago. So she looked really good in that one. I will side with her in this fight. Maybe she does get the finish, but I will go with a decision here. They both fought, was it Ernesta Caricati? She fought her on the Contender Series, won by split, or sorry, lost by split decision. Caliari lost by split decision as well. So Caricati might be decent, I guess. I don't know. Carli Judice does look pretty solid though. With them women's MMA fights, you kind of have to side it with the decision more often than not, but I'm gonna go Carli Judice in this fight. Let's move on. We have Brunno Ferreira versus Jackson McVey. I like McVey as a prospect. I believe he was supposed to fight a couple times, and he's had to have opponent changes. Yeah, Christopher Ewart, I think he was supposed to fight on a UFC card, and that fight ended up not going through. And then Cedricus Namas, that fight ended up not coming through because I don't even think he was able to make the fight. I think it had something to do with like his court dates or whatever. I don't know exactly what it was. But he's fighting Brunno Ferreira now. I think a much tougher matchup for sure. Brunno Ferreira is super stocky, and I will say, the guys that do kind of beat Brunno Ferreira are the lengthier guys, the athletic dudes that have a lot of power in their hands and can KO guys from range. Similar to kind of what McVey can do. He does have a lot of tools on the feet. I will say McVey does get hit way too much in his head. Does not move at all. Like he'll move forward and backwards, but his head is very stationary. He can definitely get caught by a Brunno Ferreira. Like if you watch his last fight against Mateo Gardner, very, again, kind of like a stockier guy as well, has a lot of power in his hands. His overhands that he was swinging was not landing on McVey, and maybe McVey can kind of stay out of danger in those areas and find the inside of Brunno Ferreira and chew up the body with like some knees like he did against Gardner in that fight and kind of break him. Maybe he can do that, but Brunno Ferreira I think is pretty solidly high level. McVey does a good job getting finishes. He's 8-0, so he is a good prospect coming up. He does, again, have a lot of tools, but Brunno Ferreira just has so much power. And I will say, coming into this fight, he's a plus 450 underdog. Might be a solid underdog for this card if you just want to kind of just throw some money on a random guy, like not take it too seriously, but the odds are plus 450. You might want to put down like maybe a five bucks on him. Maybe that might be what I do for this one, because McVey, again, there are guys that kind of beat Brunno Ferreira. It is the let's go through this real quick. Abbas Magomedov, lengthier, athletic dude on the feet, was able to find the submission on the ground, but did a good job with his length on the feet, using teeps and things like that. Nursultan Ruzabayev was able to get the finish over Brunno Ferreira as well. Super athletic dude, was able to hop in and out of range on a guy like Brunno Ferreira and get the finish that way as well. So maybe Jackson McVey can kind of find that range on the feet and kind of piece up Brunno Ferreira. I wouldn't mind that, but I just think Brunno Ferreira is just super dangerous on the feet. I'm going to have to side with him in this one. I think McVey does have a little bit of a chance. I think these odds are a little crazy in my opinion, but I do kind of get it as well. McVey just doesn't move his head, and that's what stresses me out in this fight. It's the only thing kind of keeping me from picking him in here, because I think his length is really good, especially for this fight. 77 inches of reach, will have a 5-inch reach advantage over Brunno Ferreira. But I think he's going to be open from those big shots from Brunno Ferreira on the feet. So I do worry about that a little bit. And I think McVey can also maybe find different ways to get on the inside of Brunno Ferreira, but I just don't see that really happening here. I mean, he's only 6-0. He doesn't have crazy experience. He's only 26 years of age. This could be a scenario where he might have a little short stint in the UFC right now, maybe come back a couple years later and do a little bit better. I don't know. He's still a little green, but we'll see how this fight goes. I am going to go Brunno Ferreira by KO. McVey's just a little bit too stationary, no head movement. Let's move on. We have Ryan Spann versus Lukasz Brzeski. I'm going to go with Ryan Spann here. They're both kind of on some rough losing streaks right now, if we're being honest. One in their last 5, so both of them. He will have a 1-inch reach advantage, Ryan Spann will. Both the same age. I will say Ryan Spann is a little bit better on the feet. When Lukasz Brzeski throws, and I did notice this a little bit, especially against Kennedy and Zellhuber, who we have seen get KO'd and finished before, especially on the last card. I think he got finished against Walker. Must have been a fluke for Brzeski in that fight. I don't know exactly what it was, but Brzeski, it seems like whenever he throws, there isn't much power in his hands. I think that's a pretty big issue on the feet, at least for heavyweights. So guys with power who do touch him up can't find a KO on him, and I think Ryan Spann can. I don't see him getting KO'd by Brzeski. Maybe I'm completely wrong here because it is Ryan Spann at the end of the day. But I'm going to go Ryan Spann here. I don't think he gets KO'd by Brzeski. I think he has a little bit more finishing potential on the feet. I like a second round, maybe late first round TKO for Ryan Spann here, just kind of catching Brzeski on the chin. I just don't see much power in Brzeski's hands. I think he's solid on the feet skill-wise, but I think guys are just able to find his chin. I think the power difference is always kind of an issue in this fight. So let's move on. We have Jimmy Crute versus Marcin Prachnio. I'm going to go Jimmy Crute. I was kind of a little impressed with how he did against Rodolfo Dulatov, especially early on. Always looks kind of good in that first round and then kind of tires out a little bit. But Marcin Prachnio is solid. He's almost 40 years of age, though. It is roughly like a 10-year age gap. I think maybe like 8 years is what this is coming out to be. I'm going to go with Jimmy Crute. He's got power in his hands. He's explosive, has decent technical ability. I don't think he KOs Prachnio in this one. I think this one goes to a decision, but I think he's going to be able to do enough damage early on to where maybe in the later rounds where Prachnio can potentially get the upper hands in a couple exchanges, that it's not going to be too big of an issue in the fight. So I am to go with Jimmy Crute here. I think he's got enough explosiveness in his hands, the power. He's getting a little bit better as well. He's only 29 years of age. He's entering his prime. I like that coming into this fight as well. So I'm going to go with Jimmy Crute by decision here. I don't think he KOs Prachnio or anything like that. I just think he does enough early on into the fight to where he doesn't have to worry about Prachnio potentially taking over towards the end and getting that split decision like he did against Manyfield and Bellato on those fights. So I'm going to go with Jimmy Crute by decision. Let's move on. We have Adam Fugitt versus Islam Dulatov. I am going to go with Islam Dulatov. This dude has really good boxing. I believe he was a previous boxer before heading into the UFC here. He's turning 27 now, so he's still pretty young. He's going to keep getting better. We have not seen his grappling. Adam Fugitt is, I'm pretty sure he is a grappler. He went to a split decision win with Josh Quinlan. I guess that's solid. I don't know. I mean, Fugitt does have decent hands. Is there really anything else to say? Like, this is going to be a boxing match with Islam Dulatov for the most part. I think Dulatov, he did use some wrestling or at least try to grapple at certain moments against Benito Antunes, I think is how you say his name. But ultimately on the feet, I mean, his hands were the big difference maker there. Was able to KO Antunes with a nasty elbow and put him just straight out cold. I do worry a little bit with maybe Islam Dulatov fighting higher level opponents, and especially against grapplers, because Dulatov is a little bit top heavy, and I will say that he could potentially get taken down, and I don't know how great his grappling is in general. So there is a little bit of a worry that way. I just don't see Adam Fugitt take him down. I know Fugitt does have some decent grappling. I just don't think he takes down Dulatov in this one. I think Dulatov's boxing is just too good, and I think his power in his hands is just too good as well. So I think he KOs Adam Fugitt pretty early on here. I'm very confident in this fight. I think minus 600 is probably the correct odds here for this one. So I'm expecting a pretty brutal KO for Islam Dulatov here. Let's move on. We have Adam Gautier versus Robert Valentin. I'm going to go Gautier here. I've kind of given up a little bit on Valentin. He went to a split decision with Torres Finney, but this guy has just gotten completely out-wrestled in his last 2 fights. And maybe Gautier will kind of just stay on the feet with them and make this one a little bit more interesting, because it is kind of annoying to see a guy like Valentin, who I think is probably super marketable, especially on The Ultimate Fighter. I thought he's pretty fun to watch, I will say, but Gautier, man, he's 23 years of age, has insane power, is an absolute unit, just a massive dude, has insane power on the feet. I think he's starting to get a little bit better as well, and I think as he gets a little bit older, maybe 26, 27, I think he's going to find himself at the top part of this division. I know it is middleweight, so you can't really be confident in any prospects in this division at the end of the day, because they all seem to get fraud checked at some point, but Ateba Gautier, I think if the UFC takes it a little bit slower with him, he is still a little green. It's not like blatantly green where he's just kind of sloppy. Like, he does pick and choose his shots, I will say. But he has insane power. I think if he continues to work in the gym and continues to get better, I think he's going to be a serious problem in 3 to 4 years, maybe 2 to 3 years if we're being honest. And I think he could be a serious problem in this division. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think Ateba Gautier has really nice power in his hands. Valentin is always kind of dangerous, especially in the grappling. Like, I know he does get taken down quite a bit, but he does have some opportunities to scramble once in a while, and he does find his way into getting like in a better position, but then he gets taken down again and controlled. So maybe Gautier will show off a little bit of some wrestling that he might be working on or anything like that. But I think Gautier, I do kind of trust him a little bit more on the feet. I think Valentin's not really riding that momentum out of the Ultimate Fighter that he did have. Gautier's just kind of riding his momentum now. It's pretty active as well. Last fought 3 months ago. I guess before then is, 9 months ago? So 6 month layoff there. Valentin's roughly active as well. So should be an interesting one. I think Ateba Gautier's got it on the feet, though. He's got really nice power in his hands, and I think he's a really big dude as well. So I think he's going to out size Valentin in this one. He may have to pick and choose his shots at certain points in this one. I'm thinking maybe a second round TKO here. I think Valentin will probably have a little bit of the upper hand early on, and I do think he might even win that round, in all honesty. I feel like Gautier is a little bit of a slower, like he likes to pace his shots a little bit more. He likes to think through his shots. He's a little bit more technical, so I don't think he's going to open up until he really has Robert Valentin figured out here. And Valentin is a pretty solid striker as well, so I'm thinking a second round TKO in this one. Let's move on. We have Francisco Prado versus Nikolay Veretennikov. I'm going to go Prado in this one. I think he has pretty solid hands, 23 years of age, so he's going to continue to get better and better. Veretennikov lost to Austin Vanderford by KO. Not a really good look to see, in all honesty. It honestly makes me look at Danny Barlow a little bit differently, in all honesty. So, split decision with Danny Barlow. I thought he looked pretty good in that one. I was like, okay, he's going to have a pretty solid chance against Vanderford. Vanderford coming out of Bellator didn't look too great in Bellator. Was actually pretty solid, but Vanderford kind of just ran right through him and got the TKO. I was super surprised seeing that. So I think Francisco Prado has a little bit more of an upside. He's 12 years younger coming into this fight, has really good hands. And I think he can piece up Veretennikov in some moments as well. So I like Prado in this one. Maybe a 29-28 decision. I don't see him KOing Veretennikov in this one. I think it's just going to be kind of a striking match on the feet here. Kind of like more of like a... I don't want to say like a chess match, because it's not like he's going to be using his wrestling. Maybe Prado will try to wrestle Veretennikov in this one, but I think he's just going to be the cleaner striker on the feet. I think he's going to land the bigger shots. I think he's going to be the more skilled technical striker on the feet here. So I'm going to go Prado by decision, maybe 29-28. Could see also a 30-27, but I'm going to go Prado by decision. Let's move on. We have Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen. I'm going to go Brendan Allen until I see Marvin Vettori at least evolve a little bit as a fighter and not like look worse every fight. Like, it just seems, I don't know if it's him getting worse or it's him just not improving at this point in his career. I feel like he used to wrestle a lot and now he just doesn't. He kind of relies too much on his chin, which will eventually go out, unfortunately, for him. And I do think once he does lose that, he's going to go on a pretty rough losing streak. But his striking is not good enough to hang on the feet with some of these top level guys, and he does need to use his wrestling. He just doesn't. So he just becomes a punching bag at certain points in his fights. And I do think he can make it a little bit close with Brendan Allen here. But I think Brendan Allen, 75 inches of reach, will have a 1 inch reach advantage in this fight. Very technical on the feet, can grapple himself as well. So I don't even think the wrestling factor for Vettori will be a big deal here. I think Brendan Allen is just going to be a little bit smarter on the feet. Maybe Vettori takes an early round or a round at some point, maybe a third round, and steals a round from Brendan Allen. But I think Brendan Allen's just been super consistent, more consistent than Vettori. I can trust him to kind of evolve his game a little bit, to kind of use everything in his toolbox to actually pull out a win here. Vettori, I just think he just becomes way too one-dimensional at certain points. I like Vettori as a fighter. I think he's going to be fun at this press conference if they do allow him there, because the last press conference I think he was at, I want to say it was, I just remember the Adesanya one. I can't remember if he's on an actual pay-per-view card press conference. I'm trying to remember. Maybe Roman Dolidze was the last time. I don't remember him doing too much, but I know these guys got beef, so I'm really looking forward to it if they kind of go at it on this press conference, because I remember the Izzy and Vettori one, and that one was insane. So I'm kind of hoping these guys kind of go after each other at the press conference. Should hype up this fight a little bit more and maybe hype up the card a little bit. But again, I think Vettori's just a little bit too one-dimensional at this point. And I think his striking is way too underdeveloped for him to kind of rely on that as much as he does. So I'm going to go Brendan Allen here, 29-28 decision. Let's move on. We have Kyler Phillops versus Vinicius Oliveira. I'm going to go Vinicius Oliveira. Kyler Phillops, I think he'll have a very good first round. He is good wrestling, very wild on the feet as well, especially as a striker. Very explosive at times as well. But Vinicius Oliveira, I mean, he just beat Sair Nurmagomedov by decision, just beat Ricky Simon. Those are pretty good fighters in themselves. Ricky Simon especially kind of rebounding a little bit in his last fight. Has been looking good recently. Sair Nurmagomedov has always looked pretty good as well. Kind of been at the bottom of the top 15 rankings, kind of been the gatekeeper a little bit. But Kyler Phillips, I think he just gasses out a little bit too much. He's really skilled, but I just can't trust his gas tank. And I think Vinicius Oliveira is just too good of a striker. Maybe he gets taken down early, but I think he can get back up to his feet, especially after that fight with Simone. Like, I trust Oliveira quite a bit. I think he's striking super good. I don't think he's gonna gas out in this one. I just think Kyler Phillips his gas tank isn't trustable in this one. I think Oliveira's just gonna look too good on the feet. He's gonna be too solid on the feet. I don't think he KOs Phillips. Maybe he can find a KO in maybe in like the late second or third round against Phillips, where he's just super tired and he's able to just unload combinations on him. But I just like Oliveira just being super consistent over 3 rounds, kind of piecing up Kyler Phillips in this one. So I'm gonna go Oliveira by decision. I can see maybe a late KO in this one, but Oliveira is kind of ascending in his career, entering his prime as well. I just think he's super solid. Has fought 2 really good contenders as well, and Simone and Said Nurmagomedov. So I like him coming into this one. I think he's going to have a little bit of a tough go in the first round, but I think he starts to take over and looks really good towards the end of the first and in the second and third round. So let's move on. We have Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber. Zellhuber coming off a loss to Esteban Ribovic at that Noche card at the Sphere. He was looking solid in that one. I will say, I think if this fight does become a little bit more of a slugfest, I know Michael Johnson's a little bit older, almost 40 years of age, and there is durability questions there. I think if it becomes a little bit of a slugfest, you kind of saw it against Ribovic, and I know Ribovic is a little bit more technical and not really going to get into those dirty, grimy boxing exchanges, but Daniel Zellhuber, he just looked really slow, and he looked really sloppy in those exchanges. Like when it got really dirty, like when Ribovic was kind of moving forward and kind of just making the fight really, like, being super aggressive. Like, it forces Zellhuber to be super uncomfortable. And I think Zellhuber just likes being a little bit more technical, kind of just staying at range and picking his shots. The second it isn't that, I think he does struggle a little bit. He's 26 years of age, so he's going to continue to get better. He still is a little bit green as well. 4 inches reach advantage in this one. I think he's just kind of stay at range and pick shots at Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson always has kind of that upset potential. Got a KO against Ottoman Azaitar in his last fight. Before then, Darius Flowers by decision. Lost to Diego Ferreira by KO. Rough KO in that one for sure. Mark Takagi won that one by decision. I thought he beat Jamie Mullarkey in that fight as well. So he's kind of beating these bottom feeders. Daniel Zellhuber, I think, is a little bit more skilled than some of the Azaitars, the Flowers, the Dakajian, the Mullarkeys especially. I think he's a little bit more solid as a fighter. Like, you can trust him a little bit more. I think he's just going to do a good job at range, and maybe he might get caught in certain moments against Michael Johnson here, but I think he's going to look really solid in this fight. I don't see him losing to Michael Johnson by KO. I don't see him losing by decision. I know he did lose to Trey Ogden like 3 years ago, but he's still super young at that point, and you have seen him continue to get better and better. Esteban Ribovic is a really tough fight to have, and he went to a split decision with him. Another good technical boxer there, but I think Michael Johnson is just a little bit too old here. Maybe, again, Johnson can maybe find a shot on the feet and hurt Zellhuber in moments here and win a decision, or maybe find a KO, but I like Zellhuber just kind of being a little bit more technical here, kind of playing at range. I don't think he KOs Michael Johnson in this one. I think he goes to a decision, but I do think he hurts Michael Johnson in moments to where you can kind of bank around off of that. So I'm going to go with Zellhuber here by decision. Let's move on. We have Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. I'm going to go with Dan Ige here. Got a nice KO over Sean Woodson, who's been looking really, really good. I think not many people are mentioning that, and I kind of forgot about that too until I started researching this card. It was only 3 months ago, but Sean Woodson was looking really, really good. And I think a lot of people valued him as a prospect, and I think even I thought he was going to beat Dan Ige coming into their fight. So I thought that was a pretty impressive win. Was kind of on like a 5-6 fight win streak up until that point. Beat Caceres, Jourdain. I mean, just looked really good until kind of fighting Dan Ige, a top 15 guy, and looked kind of rough in that one. And Patricio Pitbull didn't look too great against Yair Rodriguez either. Dan Ige does have some decent wrestling. I don't think it's going to get there at any point in this one. Maybe in the later rounds where Dan Ige might tire out a little bit. Maybe Pitbull can wrestle a little bit. But Dan Ige has really nice power in his hands. And I've seen Pitbull get knocked the hell out against a rising guy. You know what I mean? Like, Suzuki, from what I saw, like, he's a pretty solid fighter, and he does have nice power in his hands, and he was able to flatline Pitbull in that fight. And I think Dan Ige, very stocky dude, nice power in his hands. I think he can catch Pitbull in this fight, who's 38 years of age, kind of lost his first fight in the UFC, and kind of lost all that momentum he kind of got by jumping straight into the UFC. So I like Dan Ige in this one. Has kind of been an up and down fighter in his career. Looked pretty solid against Lerone Murphy early on. Kind of lost that one by decision. He's always kind of been competitive in his fights, especially at least recently. Diego Lopez, he took that fight on super short notice. Both of them kind of had to fight each other on short notice. Looked solid in moments in that one, but I don't I don't hold that one against him, really. It was probably a nice paycheck, in all honesty, so good for him. Andre Philly got a nice KO in that one. Bryce Mitchell looked good early on, especially defending the takedowns. I thought he looked really good early on. But again, as the fight goes on, maybe Pitbull will have some opportunities to find a takedown maybe later on in this fight, but I don't think it gets there, in all honesty. I think maybe a late first round, second round TKO, or maybe a KO for EA here is a very real possibility. He's 5 years younger, maybe around 4 years younger now. I don't know what the hell I just opened. I guess I opened months in a Google search. 4 years younger than Pitbull in this fight. I just really like him coming into this one, especially with his power. I think he can KO Pitbull. If not, I think he can bank some rounds and maybe drop Pitbull in certain moments, kind of play the guard game and whip him up there. But I just like Ige with his power. I think Pitbull's a little bit too old. His durability is a little bit of a question as well. Yeah, I'm going to go Dan Ige. I'm going to go second round TKO. I think he drops Pitbull and then finishes him up with the TKO strikes on the ground. So let's move on. You have Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. I know Daniel Rodriguez is coming off of 2 wins. Alex Morono and Santiago Ponzinibbio by KO. Looked solid in that one. That was 2 months ago. But Kevin Holland has been on a pretty nice little winning streak for himself. Gunnar Nelson, solid win to have. Vicente Luque, solid win to have, especially by submission. That's kind of Vicente's bread and butter there. The Anaconda choke was able to get it on Vicente. Or I'm sorry, Vicente Luque is a dark choke. My bad. But I got a submission over Vicente Luque, who's a pretty solid grappler himself. I know he can get taken down, but as a grappler, he does excel in those positions as well. So I guess I was a little bit wrong on the darts thing. But Kevin Holland has looked pretty good, especially recently. Has gotten a little bit more confidence in his fights. He's fighting lower level guys, so he's kind of stepping it up a little bit. He's looking to be super active as well. I think this fight was supposed to happen, if I'm remembering correctly, on that Hamzat Nate Diaz card, and then all the drama happened, and they had to switch everything up, and Leach got robbed, Leach got robbed versus D-Rod, and Kevin Holland's had to fight Hamzat, and that was a rough one for him. But I think Kevin Holland beats D-Rod here. A couple years have passed. D-Rod's only getting older, 38 years of age. Kevin Holland's only 32 now. Still kind of in his prime a little bit, at least physically speaking. This one is at welterweight as well, and I think Holland is a little bit more comfortable at welterweight because he does have a little bit of a power advantage. He's not worried too much about these these super big dudes kind of taking him down at middleweight. I do like Kevin Holland potentially KOing Daniel Rodriguez here. If I'm remembering correctly, I think didn't Neil Magny hurt D-Rod at certain points and then they submitted him with a darts. I don't really trust D-Rod too much. I think KOing Santiago Ponzinibbio at this point in his career isn't a super impressive thing. It is a name that he got a KO against, which is still pretty solid to have. But Alex Morono, a split decision, is solid to have as well. But Kevin Holland KOing, or at least finishing, Vicente Luque is pretty good. And going to a decision win against Gunnar Nelson, who I think is pretty skilled as well, is pretty impressive. So I'm going to go Kevin Holland here. I like him by KO. I think he hurt D-Rod a couple times in this fight before D-Rod kind of just gets dropped. And Kevin Holland's able to just warm him up a little bit and finish him up on the ground. So I like Kevin Holland here by TKO. I'm going to go second round TKO. I think it's a little bit more competitive in the first. Holland kind of takes over towards the end of the first round. Second round happens. I think Holland kind of finds a shot and drops D-Rod in this one. So let's move on. We have Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. Ooh, middleweight's always tricky because we have seen Roman Kopylov and Anthony Hernandez. They were kind of both on the same wavelength until they met each other, and we kind of figured out who's the phony one here and who's gonna keep going. Turns out Fluffy is the real deal, but there is this thing where these guys will kind of run into a wall at middleweight, lose, and then go back on another win streak and kind of figure it out. You kind of saw it with Nasruddin Imavov with Strickland, kind of got shoehorned in there pretty early and was able to find wins after that fight, losing to a top-ranked guy. But Kopylov is going to have a really big chance here to potentially make a decent run back into the top 10 rankings of the middleweight division. Paulo Costa hasn't been super active, hasn't been gone for a year. Had a pretty still close fight with Sean Strickland, and that's why I'm kind of worried about this one, because I feel like Kopylov I like a lot in this fight. I mean, he's really smooth on the feet, has a lot of power in his hands, and I think because this is a 3-round fight, you do kind of edge it a little bit towards Kopylov because you're not worried about 5 rounds with Paulo Costa, where you can potentially bank some rounds towards the end of it. But Costa has been fighting top-ranked dudes the last few years of his career, like Sean Strickland, Robert Whitaker, got a win over Luke Rockhold, beat Marvin Vettori. Israel Adesanya lost, or I'm sorry, didn't beat Marvin Vettori. Yeah, I mean, he could have, in all honesty. That fight was super close, but lost to Israel Adesanya. Like, these are all top-ranked guys. Roman Kopylov is coming off a win against Chris Curtis and Cesar Almeida. You know what I mean? Like, these are lower-ranked guys. It's just a much different skill gap. You'll see this a little bit. You just kind of got a time when these guys kind of fall out of their prime and when these next guys come up. But because this is a 3-rounder, I like Roman Kopylov a little bit. I think he can at least bank 1 round here, especially maybe in the late first or second round. But it's just hard to kind of trust Paulo Costa. You don't really know too much about what he'll look like, especially having a year off. So he's been super inconsistent. I think he's scheduled for a fight maybe like recently. I think June 28th. You're supposed to fight, and I guess it just got rescheduled, very interestingly enough. But we just haven't seen Paulo Costa too much, which is my only worry here. Minus 275, I think is a little steep. I do really like Roman Kopylov, so we will see how this one goes. And I do think he can outstrike Paulo Costa in moments on the feet. But I'm going to go Roman Kopylov. I'm not super confident in it, in all honesty, especially because this is middleweight division. Sometimes shit just doesn't make sense, but I'm going to go Kopylov here. I think he can bank a couple rounds against Costa. I can see it being like a 29-28 decision, maybe a split decision potentially. In this one, I think it's going to be super close. But I'm going to go Roman Kopylov, been active, super fast on the feet. I like his power as well. I think he's going to land a little bit more of the damaging shots on Costa in this one. So let's move on. We had the main event for the BMF belt. I believe I did do like a solo video on this one. It was probably about like 10 minutes long, and I kind of broke it down a little bit more. If you want to check that one out, I think it's probably just a couple scrolls down if you want to check it out. It's a little bit more of an in-depth prediction for this fight, but I am going to go with Max Holloway for this one. I am going to switch it to a decision. I think I might have said he's going to get like a TKO over Dustin Poirier, but I like Max Holloway in this fight. He's only 33 years of age. Dustin Poirier is going to be 36, coming into his last fight of his career. I will say the pictures that have been going around at like the photo shoots or whatever they do before the fights, Dustin Poirier's looking pretty lean, so I think he's going to be in his best shape probably of his life coming into this fight, which I do like to see. I think it's going to make this fight a little bit more interesting. I will say Dustin Poirier, I know it was against Islam Makhachev, which is why I'm a little bit worried about this, wary about this fight, is he did look a little bit slow. I know he got tired out because of the grappling against Islam Makhachev, and I know he's defending takedowns, so it is a little bit, I don't know how... I don't know how I'm supposed to take like his performance in that fight. Like he did make it super close, and I think a lot of people don't give him credit for that, but it was a pretty close fight. But he did look a little bit slow in moments. I don't know if it's because he's defending the takedowns or not, but he did look slow striking wise, and I think he did tire out a little bit. And I don't think this fight's going to end up grappling, so I don't think he needs to worry about that at all. But coming into this fight, Max Holloway's coming off a pretty brutal KO against Ilia Topuria. My only worry coming into this fight is if Max Holloway's chin just isn't the same after that KO against Ilia Topuria, which I think it should be fine because he is moving up a division where I think he's more comfortable at, where he's settled into, where he's built up muscle for. Coming into that Ilia Topuria fight, he's kind of cut a bunch of weight, and I think he was a little bit more drained for that fight. And we have seen him at 155 recently, especially built into that division against Justin Gaethje, and looked really, really good. So there is a little bit of a worry early on against Dustin Poirier here, where Dustin Poirier can maybe let go of his hands super early on, kind of similar to their last fight. And Dustin Poirier had an insane amount of output against Max Holloway in that fight. I mean, that dude was just throwing and throwing and throwing and could not finish a 145-pound Max Holloway who wasn't completely built for the 155-pound division at that point. So Max Holloway can take a beating. I think his chin can take a beating in this one as well. I don't think his chin has been like completely altered after fighting Ilia Topuria and getting KO'd. Like I think Justin Gaethje unofficially knocked him down to Ilia Topuria right after that KO'd him. So maybe there is potential damage to his chin, and maybe he could get KO'd here, but I just don't see that happening. Max Holloway just has way too much pop in his shots. He doesn't have like one. It's hard to say he doesn't have one punch KO power because we've seen him put Justin Gaethje out cold, but he does have like pop in his shots, but it's not like he's going to land a shot and guys are just going to go out like that. Like it's more guys like overextending, guys who have been already like worn down by Max Holloway, and he kind of just finds that perfect shot and puts them out. That's kind of what it is. But he does have some pop in his shots. I think Dustin Poirier just is going to have to worry about that because, again, I think Max Holloway is a little bit more built for this division at this point in his career. I think it's going to be back and forth. I'm going to be completely honest. I can see it being like 2-2 going into that fifth round, and both guys kind of just scrapping it out towards the end, kind of like a classic fight, especially for Dustin Poirier, like a classic one of these ones, like the Dan Hooker's fight, the Justin Gaethje fight, the Michael Chandler fight. Like you always see that last round, they're kind of just going at it. I think it's going to be one of those fights. I think we're going to see an absolute scrap here. I think Dustin Poirier is going to kind of just give it his all for this last one, especially like he's going to overachieve in this one, especially for his age and how I think he is physically. I think he's going to overachieve in this one. I think Max Holloway is just going to be a little land. I don't want to say the better shots because Dustin Poirier has really nice boxing, but I think the pop in his shots are just going to be the difference maker than their last fight because Dustin Poirier was landing like crazy on Max Holloway. But when Max Holloway would land on Dustin Poirier, it wasn't doing anything. Like there were moments where Dustin Poirier got hurt and Max Holloway tried to finish him and he couldn't. Maybe in a scenario in this fight where Max Holloway has a little bit more pop in his shots at 155, maybe he does finish the Dustin Poirier, which could be a little bit more different for this one. But I like Max Holloway kind of just finding a shot on the feet, maybe potentially hurting Dustin Poirier pretty badly. And I do think there is a scenario where Dustin Poirier does get KO'd by Max Holloway here, but I think it goes to a decision. I think Dustin Poirier is gonna hang in there. The only shot that like KO'd Dustin Poirier recently, I mean, if you kind of just go through it, it was the Justin Gaethje fight where you kind of didn't even really see the head kick coming. I know he did block it like partially, but he still went out cold from it. What else was it like? When was the last time he's really gotten KO'd or anything like that? Was it? If you just look through it, Charles Oliveira, he got hurt at certain moments, but even Charles Oliveira like claimed his back. Like last time he got KO'd was against Michael Johnson, and Michael Johnson was able to find it. So maybe Max Holloway can potentially find the chin of Dustin Poirier and KO him like completely out cold. And when Dustin Poirier does get hurt like that, he does go out. Like there isn't really survivability on the ground from what we've seen with Dustin. Like Michael Johnson put him out immediately, Justin Gaethje put him out immediately. But in this one, I think it goes all 5 rounds. If anything, I think we could have another Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway moment where they kind of point to the ground and start going at it. That would be pretty awesome to see, especially for a Dustin Poirier retirement fight. That would be pretty insane to see. I think we will end up seeing that going into the 5th round, and maybe that's where a potential KO could appear at. But I really like this fight for Max Holloway. I think he's the younger fighter. Not that I think he's the younger fighter. He is the younger fighter. He has more pop in his shots. I think he is hittable, which is always kind of a worry with Max Holloway, but I think the pop in his shots is just going to be the massive difference maker coming into this one. So I'm going to go Max Holloway here by decision. I can see a potential KO for him in this one, unless his chin just is completely like broke. Maybe Dustin Poirier can find a KO in this one, but again, should be a very interesting fight. I think Max Holloway wins by decision. I think he just lands some more damaging blows as this fight goes on. I think it's going to be a little bit more different than the last fight. I think Dustin Poirier has something to worry about for Max Holloway because he felt Max Holloway's power got hurt early on. Max Holloway wasn't able to finish him, and he kind of just was able to do whatever he wanted. He threw like an insane amount of output if you watch that fight. I mean, he was just wailing on Max Holloway, kind of gassed himself out, and Max Holloway had opportunities because of that because Dustin Poirier tired himself out just trying to beat up on Max Holloway, especially early on. So I think Max Holloway's power and popping his shots for being well built into this division is just gonna keep Dustin Poirier at bay. He's not gonna be able to open up completely. And I think Max Holloway is just gonna be able to land the more powerful shots in this one. So I'm going Max Holloway by decision. Let me know who you guys have down below in this one. Who do you guys have winning the main event? And I'll see you guys